initiated with a solitary night. She didn't return home. I remained, seemingly intelligent, endlessly swiping through my phone, watching the hands of the clock inch past midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., no messages, no calls, only an oppressive quiet. Katie had attended a gathering, one of those nights intended for relieving stress acceptable enough, I thought. However, by 3 a.m., my thoughts began to accelerate. You know that uneasy sensation when something isn't right, yet you refuse to acknowledge it because if you do, it becomes undeniably real. Yes, that was me. I reasoned with myself that she might be with her friends, perhaps overindulging, and they were merely looking after her, a gesture of friendship, wasn't it? But something within me warned that this wasn't the case. At 3:45 a.m., I attempted to reach her through calls, only to hear her phone ring to voicemail. I also sent a text. "Katie, where are you?" left on read. The clock continued its inexorable march forward. Yet, the minutes felt weightier, as if they were pulling me down along with them. My mind began deceiving me. Pictures of her laughing with an unknown man flashed before my eyes, scenes I wanted to deny but couldn't dismiss. As the sun peeked through the blinds, rage washed over me. I was no longer anxious. I was enraged. She believed she could simply vanish all night without a word, as if I didn't exist. Slipping out in her little black dress, she declared she required a break, tired of dealing with my problems, a statement that stung deeply. In essence, she implied I was the problem. Her repeated criticisms about our intimacy issues had transformed into our marital identity, one failed attempt being all it took to cast me as the perpetrator. By 9 a.m., I had grown tired of waiting for her to address the issue instead of communicating or acknowledging anything wrong. I snatched my keys and departed from my house, determined not to remain idle any longer. I had a friend named Dave residing nearby, where I believed the party was occurring. On impulse, I phoned him. He sounded groggy but awake. "Hey, buddy, have you seen Katie tonight? She hasn't returned home." There was a prolonged silence, and I could sense his thoughts grinding in his mind. "No," he replied, "I haven't. I thought you two were together." That statement made me realize that there was no more deceit, no more excuses. Something was amiss, and I was about to uncover the truth by noon. I examined her location on our shared app. She had forgotten to deactivate it, revealing she wasn't with friends, not at any after party. Instead, she was in a random apartment complex on the opposite side of town, far from where she should have been. My hands trembled as I parked outside the building. I didn't even possess a plan. Initially uncertain about charging up to confront her and unveil the truth, the simmering rage propelled me forward. I felt mechanically driven, and the raw urge for facts compelled me to keep going. When I spotted her exit around 12:30, all my resolve crumbled. She was wearing a black dress, her hair disheveled, makeup smeared, giving off an air of guilt or satisfaction from a night well spent. She wasn't alone. A tall, clean-cut man followed her, reeking of arrogance. They seemed oblivious to my presence, parked across the street. Katie flashed him that familiar smile she once reserved for me, and he kissed her publicly in broad daylight. My body froze as a tightness gripped my chest. A part of me yearned to charge over and tear this man apart, scream at her until my throat bled. However, I remained motionless, holding onto the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I witnessed her entering his vehicle and departing without a word, leaving me dazed and bewildered as I returned home. My mind whirled with queries, emotions like anger, humiliation assaulting me all at once. The duration of this secret affair, had she believed I would remain oblivious to it? Was this her strategy to resolve our issues upon my return? I refrained from texting or calling, instead choosing to ghost her and let her ponder my whereabouts for a change. By the time evening arrived, my phone started buzzing with texts from Katie. Inquiries regarding my location and well-being flooded in. Apologies followed, expressing remorse over not returning home the previous night and a plea to converse. I chose not to respond, instead sitting there, staring at her messages, burdened by every falsehood she had told me, every partial truth that made me feel broken, while she assumed the role of the wronged party. By the following morning, she appeared at the house in tears, knocking frantically on the door, imploring me to listen to her explanation. At that moment, I chose not to let this pass without a fight. Katie was standing at the door, her mascara smeared as if from prolonged weeping. She knocked again, her voice quivering as she called my name, Ethan. Please, just open the door. I can explain. Was there anything left to explain? I wasn't prepared to confront her yet, but I was tired of hiding behind walls. So I opened the door slightly at first, just enough to see her standing there in the same black dress she had worn when she stormed out of that man's apartment. Seeing her like that, disheveled and pitiful, didn't stir up pity within me. Instead, it made me angry. I demanded an explanation, my voice icy, as I moved aside to let her in. She flinched at the tone, but pressed on past me, wiping her eyes. She stood in the living room, nervously wringing her hands, much like a timid schoolgirl. However, there was no trace of compassion left within me, not after what I witnessed, not following that kiss Ethan's. She began to speak, her voice quivering, and I almost chuckled at the cliché tone she employed. I closed the door behind her and pressed against it, crossing my arms, waiting for her to deliver whatever excuse she believed would mend this situation. It's not what you think, I repeated, keeping my voice low. I'm almost certain I saw you leave Ethan's apartment this morning. I'm pretty positive I watched him kiss you just before you got in his car. Her mouth opened, but words failed her initially, her eyes widening in shock at my knowledge of the situation. Clearly, she hadn't anticipated me discovering Ethan's role. I was drunk, she finally managed to say. My judgment wasn't clear. It just happened. I didn't intend for it to escalate as it did. I scoffed in disbelief. Drunk. Not thinking straight. Just happening. She tried to explain. That was your explanation. You hadn't intended for things to escalate. I retorted, my voice rising. What exactly didn't you mean by you, Katie? The part where you deceived me and claimed you were out with friends, or the part where you slept? With someone else? But you didn't sleep with him, she blurred out, a little too quickly, the lie coming so swiftly it was almost impressive. I chuckled, my laughter bitter and short, really, because I don't believe you, not a single word of it. Katie began to pace, running her fingers through her hair, seeming as if she were searching for the right angle, the perfect twist to persuade me it was a mistake. She muttered, her voice breaking, I was just so frustrated with everything with us. You don't even see how hard this has been for me, and there it was. It was my fault. She turned it around, making it about how she was struggling. I could feel the pulse in my temples as I stared at her, trying to comprehend how she had the audacity to make this about her. It was my fault, as I maintained a composed voice, since I couldn't resolve our issues swiftly because of certain problems in our intimate life. Katie paused briefly, and I thought she might acknowledge it, but instead she sighed, playing the victim flawlessly. She claimed, whispering, "You don't understand. I've been trying, Ethan. I've been struggling to stay composed. But you've been so aloof, and it's not just that. For months, you've been pushing me away." I couldn't fathom what she was saying, as I had been the one sitting there, night after night, trying to communicate with her, trying to understand what was wrong. Instead, she dismissed me, told me I was too sensitive or overthinking things. Now, standing there, she blamed me for her infidelity with another man. "You've got to be kidding me," I retorted through gritted teeth. "Do you really believe I'm distant? You've been secretive, deceitful, and now you expect me to believe it's because of something I did." She remained silent, looking troubled as if she might break apart. Almost felt sympathetic towards her again, nearly believed it, but then remembered that kiss, the way she smiled at him as if I didn't exist. "How long, Katie?" I asked softly, the question slipping out before I could halt it. "How long has this been happening?" Her face paled, she didn't deny it, and that silence spoke volumes. That was all I needed. She had no explanation, no way to make this vanish. "Ethan," she stammered, but I interrupted, "You're finished." I said, advancing towards her, "You're finished lying. You're finished manipulating the situation to portray yourself as a victim. I demand the truth. How long, Katie?" She looked at the floor, her hands trembling. "A few months," she murmured almost inaudibly. "A few months back, My stomach plunged as I walked into the house. For several months, I had been feigning normalcy while she was with another. My fists clenched, but I held my composure. Losing control then wouldn't help. I needed to keep a clear mind and leave. I spoke coldly, "Ethan, please." She tried to respond, but I cut her off. "Leave," I commanded, pointing at the door. "Go be with him if that's what you want. But don't stand here pretending this is my fault." With a brief crumple of her face, I thought Katie might argue or struggle to escape the situation. Instead, she nodded, defeatedly, grabbed her purse, slumped her shoulders, and, without another word, left as the door clicked shut, leaving only silence in its wake. However, it was far from over. It had merely begun a new chapter. As soon as she departed, I felt an unusual sense of relief for months on end. For once, the house was quiet, and I wasn't nervously awaiting her arrival at the door. The relationship seemed to have concluded, or so it appeared. Sinking into the couch, I stared at the spot where she had stood mere moments ago. It was hard to fathom how everything had disintegrated in such a short time. One evening, one single event, and everything had begun to unravel. I tried convincing myself that I didn't care about her departure and that I was better off without her lies and excuses. I had severed ties with her just as she had discarded me from her life for several months. I had ghosted her as she had done to me. Emotionally, I felt it was appropriate, but ghosting didn't prove as fulfilling as anticipated after the anger subsided. All that remained was emptiness. The adrenaline that sustained me was waning, leaving me drained. I glanced at my phone, at the messages she'd sent earlier, all unread desperate appeals. "Ethan, we need to talk. Please respond. I'm sorry, I know I messed up. Let's work through this. I miss you. Where are you?" Each message knotted my stomach. It was all a facade. She didn't miss me. She missed the control, the security of knowing she had me under her spell while she led a secret life. The more I read, the angrier I grew. But beneath that anger lay something deeper, a sadness that crept in once the rage subsided, a kind that reminded me that the person I loved had discarded everything so callously as if it mattered little by the following evening. I hadn't replied to her before, and honestly, I had no intention of doing so, but life has a knack for throwing unexpected events our way. Even when we think we're in control, it catches us off guard. At around 7 p.m., my phone buzzed again, this time with a call, not a text as usual from her. I stared at the screen as her name illuminated, contemplating ignoring it, but my curiosity prevailed. I wanted to hear what she had to say this time, so I answered, keeping my voice detached and distant. On the other end, her voice was a tumult of tears and hurried breaths. "Ethan, please? I I just need to see you once. We need to talk face to face," she begged. I remained silent for a moment, listening to her weep. If it wasn't sad, it would have been, if not for the part of me that still felt something for her. Despite everything she had done, I still cared stupidly so. In the end, I said plainly, "There's nothing to talk about. Katie, you've made your decision, now deal with it. I understand your tears, but I need to clarify something. Ethan, please let me explain." She paused, struggling to find the words, then shockingly said she would leave him. Cut him off. He meant nothing, I swear. I was stunned by her sudden declaration, having been secretive about this man for months, now discarding him as if he were insignificant. Was she serious, or just playing a game? "You should have considered that before you slept with him," I retorted more harshly than intended. "It wasn't like that," she shouted back over the phone, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, it was a mistake." I was angry. I felt trapped. "You don't know how difficult it has been for me, how lonely I have been." Her words echoed familiar sentiments. She wasn't to blame, never had been, always someone else, always me. In her mind, she was the victim, and I was the villain. Despite your struggles, I find myself disengaged and now walking restlessly in the living room. You, unmindful of my hardships, were here with Katie. I struggled to cope, but you failed to reciprocate. Instead, you found solace elsewhere. That's not fair." She sobbed, her voice quivering. "I didn't intend for this to occur. It wasn't supposed to escalate like this. It was just, I don't know. He was just there. somehow providing an odd sense of comfort. My grip tightened on the phone. "So, do you think we can reconcile, pretending nothing ever happened?" I asked, attempting to maintain my composure, but she didn't respond for a while. The breathing on the other end was shallow and irregular when she eventually spoke again, her voice soft and almost beseeching. "Ethan, I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. Don't discard this because of one night, one night." I nearly laughed again, feeling the bitterness well up within me. This wasn't a single night affair. It encompassed months of deception, betrayal, manipulation, all while she maintained a facade, claiming everything was all right. Each day, she lied to my face, hiding her infidelity. How could she utter those words? "I love you." It wasn't about me. It was about the illusion, the sense of security and comfort she found in me. If she truly loved me, she wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have ignored my existence as she was with him. "Ethan, please," she murmured, but I could no longer bear her words. "It was over," I said, my voice final. "Stop calling me, stop texting me, just stop," before she could say anything more. I hung up and tossed the phone onto the couch. My hands were trembling, my heart pounded in my chest. The initial relief from ghosting her had faded. The weight of reality bore down heavily. The freedom I sought felt less fulfilling than anticipated, instead leaving a hollow sensation as if something vital had been torn away and replaced with an unrelenting void. Standing amidst the silence of the vacant living room, the emptiness echoed in my ears. This is the aspect seldom discussed, even after making the correct choice. One remains standing amidst the debris, questioning if things could have turned out differently. The days following were a blur. I believed severing ties with her would bring me solace, yet it didn't. Ghosting was merely a short-term remedy, like a bandage over a wound that continued to seethe beneath. I hadn't heard from Katie for some time, and truthfully, I wasn't sure if this was beneficial or not. My house felt too still, too vacant every time I settled down. My mind would inexorably drift back to what transpired between us, her apologetic pleas echoing over the phone. However, as I grew accustomed to the silence and convinced myself I'd acted correctly, the universe seemed to rewrite the script. It was a late Friday night, one of those evenings where you're just parked in front of the TV, barely watching anything, trying to muffle your thoughts. Midway through a beer, my phone vibrated on the coffee table. I looked at it, expecting an insignificant notification, but the name on the screen chilled my blood. It was him, the man Katie had been with, Jason. I thought it was a cruel prank. Why in the world would he be contacting me? My first instinct was to hurl the phone away, disregard it, and forget the incident ever happened. Yet, curiosity and rage overpowered that impulse. I picked up the phone, growling, and tightened my grip. On the other end, there was a pause followed by a deep breath. Then Ethan's voice, surprisingly calm. "Listen," he said, "I know this is incredibly awkward, but you need to hear me out." His composure seemed rehearsed, as if he was delivering some twisted apology I didn't want to acknowledge. I shouted, "Don't tell me I want to hear anything from you. You slept with my wife, and now you're calling as if we're going to have a casual conversation about it. What are you proud of yourself? You're not acting as if what you said earlier was true, and you sounded nervous, Jason. Frankly, I haven't taken pride in anything, including our situation. To be honest, I wasn't aware Katie was married when we started. She never mentioned it to me. When I found out, I was stunned. I asked more out of confusion than anger. You didn't tell me you were married, right? Now I'm questioning everything. You claim you didn't know the truth all this time. I swear you said that you discovered her marital status only a few weeks ago. She'd been talking about a complex relationship, but never mentioned you when I found out. Man, I was angry too. I've been trying to end things, but she's been behaving erratically, clinging to both of us like she can't let go. My thoughts are jumbled. Katie has always been skilled at manipulation, but I didn't realize the depth of it. She managed to keep both of us entangled in lies. Just as she deceived me, so she deceived him. So why are you contacting me now? I asked, my voice harsher than intended. What do you want from me, Jason? I'm not calling to make excuses. Katie has been attempting to reconnect with you, and she's been relentless in her pursuit. She's constantly calling, showing up at your doorstep, professing her readiness to end things with you and declaring her preference for you. However, I don't wish to be entangled in this chaos anymore. I'm finished. I don't want to deal with her mess. As I stood there, my mind whirled. This situation was too complex, too bizarre. Despite all the tears and pleas for forgiveness she directed at me, Katie is still pursuing you. Are you aware of this? Yes, Jason confirmed, his voice tinged with bitterness. I thought it was important for you to be informed, man. I apologize for everything, sincerely, but Katie is manipulating both sides, and I don't believe she'll stop. You should sever ties with her completely. The word toxic struck me forcefully, as much as I hated to acknowledge it. Jason was correct. Katie had transformed into a tumultuous element, devastating everything in her wake, and now not even the man she was unfaithful to wished to associate with her. I stated after a pause, my voice soft yet decisive, and you should feel the same way. Let her self-destruct on her own. Jason whispered quietly, take care of yourself, Ethan. You don't need someone like her pulling you under. I ended the call without another word, my hands trembling. My thoughts swirled as I grappled with everything that had just been revealed. Katie wasn't merely trying to save her marriage. She was attempting to keep us both, as if we were some kind of perverse standby plans for her twisted notion of stability. This revelation made me ill. I remained there for a while, fixed on the phone in astonishment, as each time I thought I understood the situation better, new truths emerged, exposing the depth of her deceit. This wasn't merely an instance of dishonesty. It was more than a single error or moment. Katie was not just a cheater, but also a manipulator, and I had been oblivious to her true nature for far too long. The next day, I awoke with a renewed clarity, as Jason's call had illuminated something that I had previously ignored. I wasn't convinced Katie would stop. She wouldn't give up until she possessed me, him, or both of us. She was the type of person who couldn't let go, indifferent to the harm she caused, as long as she achieved her ultimate goal. However, this time, I would not allow her victory. I reached for my phone and sent her a straightforward and decisive message. It's over. I will be consulting a lawyer. The house is off limits to you. No explanation, no room for debate. Feeling an unexpected tranquility, I sent the message, blocked her number, and relaxed. It seemed as if the burden of the past months had been lifted. The game was over, and this time I held the reins. I believed ending it would bring the peace I sought, but I misjudged Katie. She wasn't one to accept no after sending the message. There was a moment of stillness, a calm in the eye of the storm, the first in weeks. Thinking the worst was over, I was mistaken. The next day, returning home from work, I found my house unusually quiet, as expected. However, upon opening the door, I heard her voice, Katie's voice, cutting through the silence like a blade, causing my heart to sink. She was there, inside, sitting on the couch, as if nothing had altered, as if she still belonged. Katie hadn't knocked. Instead, she had used the spare key and walked in. I had failed to retrieve it. Her eyes were wide and rimmed red, on the verge of tears. Seeing her sitting there pretending to cry made my blood boil. "What are you doing here, Katie?" I asked, struggling to maintain composure. She swiftly approached me as if to hug me. "Ethan, please," she sobbed, reaching for my arm. "I've been thinking about everything and I can't lose you. I know I messed up, but I can fix this. We can fix this." I pulled away my arm before she could touch me, stepping back. "No," I said sternly, "you don't get to just appear here after all you've done and act like things can return to normal. We're over, Katie. I told you that, but we're not over." She was insistent, her voice frantic. "You're just angry, but I can fix it. I'll cut him off. I'll do whatever it takes. You just need to give me another chance. Ethan, I truly do love you, I swear." Yet, I found myself struggling to believe it as I gazed at her. How was she still trying to persuade me of her affection when I knew so much? This wasn't a game. This was reality. "You don't love me," I said coldly. "You crave control. You revel in the fact that you can possess both me and another. But that's not love, Katie. That's manipulation." She shook her head vehemently, tears streaming down her face now. "No, it wasn't like that," she pleaded. "I made a mistake. It's you I want. It's always been you," she wanted to shout at me. I wanted to throw her out of the house in that moment, but instead, I merely laughed a bitter, hollow laugh from some deep place inside. It was a laugh I didn't even recognize. Always been me, I echoed, shaking my head. You've been sleeping with another man for months, Katie. You've lied to me every single day. You don't get to say it's always been me. It didn't mean anything, she cried out, her voice desperate. He didn't mean anything to me. Initially, I was perplexed and unsure about my actions, but now I am clear and prepared to set things right. Ethan, please don't discard this. It matters too much. You destroyed it the moment you chose infidelity. That's not something easily forgiven, especially after being betrayed. I know everything, Katie, your desperate attempts to straddle both of us. Your so-called sorrow is nothing but fear of solitude. Her face contorted in disbelief, as if she hadn't anticipated my knowledge. Her lips parted likely to refute, but I didn't allow it. Jason contacted me. He shared the details of your visits at his place, pleading for a second chance while claiming a desire to repair our marriage with me. You're not apologetic for your actions, merely regretful that you were caught. A glimmer of remorse or fear flashed in her eyes, perhaps. Again, she spoke, more slowly, barely audible. Ethan, I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. But there's nothing to rectify, I stated as I opened the door. You must depart now. It's over. She stood motionless, seeming to expect me to reconsider, as if she retained some control over me. Yet, this time, I was through, completely done with it all. She wouldn't talk her way out of this predicament. Gradually, she wiped her face with the back of her hand, straightened her posture, and gave me a stern, unyielding gaze that made me understand I didn't truly know her at all. The tears ceased, the trembling stopped, the regret vanished. Fine, she said in a cold, venomous tone. If this is what you want, then fine. But don't pretend to be an innocent victim, Ethan. You have your own issues, and you're aware of them. You're not exactly admirable. I remained frozen. That was the real Katie, the one who couldn't stand being caught. The one who always ensured she didn't leave as the wrongdoer, even in this situation where everything was revealed. She had to bring me down before leaving. I repeated my calm but firm voice, but she didn't respond. She merely grabbed her purse, walked out the door, and slammed it shut, leaving behind a suffocating silence. I stood there for what seemed like hours, staring at the door, waiting for some sign of life or change. I didn't anticipate her pounding on the door, screaming, but she didn't return. She truly left this time. I sank onto the couch, my mind spinning, yet the relief I anticipated wasn't there. Instead, a void filled me, as if the remaining fragments of my life had vanished. I had lost what I thought was mine, and though I knew it was over and I made the right choice, the emptiness in my chest persisted. The most painful aspect wasn't her departure. It was understanding that she hadn't been there to begin with. The next morning, I awoke to the silence of an empty house. No more Katie, no more deception. The quietness was overwhelming. As I sat up in bed, gazing at where she used to sleep, I felt the lingering pain, a kind that penetrates deeply and raises questions about everything. However, as I remained there, I recognized that my sadness was tainted with something else, relief, for she was truly gone this time, no more games. By the time I descended stairs, a message awaited on the table, her familiar handwriting. I had overlooked the spare key she kept. Evidently, she'd slipped in unnoticed and abandoned it behind. The note was succinct, sharp, and seething with venom. "You'll rue this day," it read. "You could have salvaged us, but you lacked the courage to attempt it. Don't delude yourself into thinking you'll find someone better than me. You never deserved me." Nevertheless, reading it almost caused me to chuckle. It was as if she was destined to conclude that way. She was subtly trying to make me believe I was at fault, as if her leaving was a kindness bestowed upon me. However, her message failed to hurt as intended. Instead, it merely confirmed what I had already understood: Katie lacks the ability to admit mistakes, and that note represented her final attempt to shake my self-belief. I discarded the note, threw it in the bin, then brewed some coffee. The day lay ahead, a clean slate, and I was unsure of how to fill it. I made an effort to concentrate on minor details. I tidied the kitchen, did laundry to distract myself from the remnants of the past few turbulent weeks. Yet my thoughts constantly wandered back to her, to the quarrels, deceit, and then to Jason's call. The oddness of that entire situation lingered. At least he admitted his wrongdoings, something Katie would never have done. It left me pondering. Was he as unaware of her infidelity as I was? Was he merely another piece in her chaotic puzzle by midday? Overwhelmed by the reminders of us within our home, I needed escape. I snatched my keys and ventured out for a drive with no particular destination. I yearned for solitude to free my mind from its burden. The streets teemed with activity, yet inside my vehicle, only silence and my thoughts filled the space. For the first time, I acknowledged the heaviness of the situation, the deception, the lies, the resentment, the agony. All at once, the anguish surged within me like a mighty wave, leaving no room for resistance. I parked haphazardly in a public park and watched as people lived their lives, couples hand in hand, children playing, dogs being walked. Ordinary scenes of existence, once familiar, now seemed alien, belonging to another. It wasn't her departure that saddened me, but the loss of the life we shared. I believed we were constructing our tomorrow, yet seemingly everything we'd planned, vacations, getaways, and trifles such as decking the halls at Christmas, vanished. In its place emerged the stark truth. I had been living a deception for months on end. It wasn't solely Katie's deceit that caused the pain. Rather, it was the revelation that the person I believed I understood was an illusion. She had been enacting a role, disguising herself as someone else, and I fell for it entirely. I confided in her, gave her everything, and she destroyed it without hesitation. Yet, as I watched the world carry on, I recognized something else. This wasn't an ending. Life was continuing. I was still present, alive, thinking, hurting, but also liberated, free from her deceit, free from manipulation, and that realization empowered me to resume driving without a specific destination, simply allowing the road to lead me where it chose. Eventually, I arrived at a lawyer's office, not by design but instinctively recognizing it was a necessary step. Inside, a middle-aged woman with experience in cases like mine welcomed me. She asked minimal questions, just enough to set things in motion. A divorce seemed definitive, a conclusion to something toxic. We discussed the details, paperwork, and the practicalities of dividing everything. The process felt sterile, impersonal. But under the circumstances that might have been advantageous, the quicker I made it official, the sooner I could move on. By the time I left the office, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. For a moment, I stood there, absorbing it all. This was reality. On my journey home, I was irrevocably progressing, and there was no going back. Somehow, within me, there was a change. The sadness remained, but it wasn't as oppressive as before. There was room for something else now. There was a glimmer of hope, or at least the possibility of it, when I reached home. Upon entering, I noticed for the first time in weeks, the house didn't feel constricting. Instead, it seemed altered, filled with potential. I no longer had to live under her deceit. I no longer carried the burden of her betrayal. In my domain, I settled on the couch, letting the burden of the day slide from my shoulders. It wasn't going to be simple. None of this ever is, but for the first time, I was certain I would survive. Katie could carry on with her life, find solace elsewhere, but not here anymore. I had moved on from her deceit, moved on from her grip on my existence. I no longer needed her, and that realization felt like the dawn of a new chapter. The subsequent days drifted by in an uncanny stillness, a tranquility that seemed precarious, like the silence before a storm clouds the sky. I had filed for divorce, and, as far as I was concerned, Katie was out of my life forever. She hadn't contacted me since. No texts, no calls, nothing. It felt as if she had vanished, and for a while I contemplated whether she might have finally comprehended that it was all over. But deep within, I knew better. People like Katie don't fade away silently. They withdraw, regroup, and return more powerful, more malicious. It was inevitable. It was a Tuesday morning when the initial fissure emerged. Fresh from my shower, my phone buzzed with an email alert. I grabbed it, still damp, anticipating junk mail or work matters instead. Instead, it was from Katie without a subject line. Her name alone was ominous. For a moment, I hesitated, my thumb lingering over the screen, considering whether to open it at all. But my curiosity prevailed, and I clicked. The message was brief, just 3 sentences, but its impact was like a blow to the abdomen. You want to play the victim, but you're not blameless either. Remember what I know about you. If you believe this divorce will be effortless, think again. My stomach nodded. What on earth was she referring to? What did she imagine she knew about me? There was no secret, nothing hidden, but her threat was obvious, and it sent a shiver of apprehension through me. Katie wasn't going to let this end easily. Preparations for a confrontation. I dropped the phone as my thoughts whirled. This was typical Katie. She couldn't bear being the one who lost or was unable to depart under her own terms. Thus, she was attempting to frighten me, hoping to find some hidden truth that could sway the situation in her favor. However, my mind spun, seeking anything she could misconstrue and exploit for her benefit. Anything she might employ to smear my reputation, and then it struck me there was an old secret. Years ago, before all this turmoil began, I had lent some money to a friend. It wasn't significant. It was merely a loan to aid him during hard times. Yet, the fact remained that I hadn't informed Katie about it, not because I was hiding it, but because I knew her obsession with finances and control, always meticulously monitoring every minor detail. I didn't want the dispute that would have ensued. Now, I've been keeping it secret, and I pondered if she might have discovered my hidden truth, perhaps using it against me. Yet even if she did uncover it, it wasn't some monumental scandal. It was a personal choice with minimal repercussions, at least that's what I convinced myself. However, the email haunted me all day long. By evening, I became restless, wandering the house as my thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of possibilities. What did she plan? How far would she go to bring me down? To clear my mind, I decided to call Dave, my closest friend and the only one privy to the whole story. He picked up on the second ring, his voice carefree and collected, as if he had been anticipating my call. "What's up, man? How's life after Katie?" he asked with a hint of humor to ease the tension. "It was fine until today," I replied, massaging my temples. "She's resuming her harassment, sending me an ominous email threatening that she knows something about me. You seem puzzled by what she said, and it's making you uneasy." There was a brief silence over the call. Dave inquired in a more serious tone now. "What did she convey to you?" I shared with him her exact words. After a moment of quietness from Dave, he spoke. His tone changed. "He implied that she's just trying to unsettle you, right? He asserted that she doesn't have anything on you. She's merely attempting to frighten you. That's her style." I acknowledged it, but the way she phrased it made an impact. I felt there was more to come from her. This isn't over for her, I sensed. She has not finished with me. Dave implied that she's a schemer, but she can't harm you if you don't let her. You have the truth on your side. She can play dirty, but she can't fabricate lies. That will stick. Though a part of me hesitated, I agreed with you. We continued talking, mostly about trivial matters like work and sports. By the end of the call, my mind was somewhat at ease, yet the underlying tension persisted, haunting me that night as I lay in bed, lost in thought. Her words echoed repeatedly in my head. Was she bluffing, or did she really have a plan? I couldn't tell, and that uncertainty terrified me. Katie was unpredictable, and I had no clue what she might do next. The following morning, I decided to take action. I wouldn't wait idly for her next move. I was done responding reactively. I decided it was necessary to safeguard myself, so I contacted the lawyer I had met recently, detailing the predicament entirely. I informed him about Katie's email containing an unspecific threat and expressed my uncertainty regarding her intentions, but emphasized the need to be vigilant. He responded with confidence, assuring me that while she might be bluffing, we wouldn't take any chances if she attempted anything. We would stay prepared. A wave of relief swept over me as I felt like I was regaining control, having a plan in place. Katie could continue sending her cryptic threats, but I vowed not to let her control me anymore. After ending the call, I experienced a peculiar blend of determination and fatigue. This marked the commencement of the real struggle, the one I had anticipated would occur. Katie wouldn't let go easily, but I wouldn't allow her to bring me down either. The tranquility was over. The storm was approaching, but this time I was prepared for it. A week slipped by in a haze of preparations, lawyer meetings, document gathering, and meticulous checks on every detail that might incriminate me. The animosity between me and Katie lurked just beneath the surface like a time bomb waiting to explode at any moment. Each day I anxiously anticipated her next move, pondering the kind of game she would play next. Then, one evening, the email arrived. I had begun to question my initial assessment of her, but this time it was different. The subject line read, "You've left me no choice." My stomach nodded as I read through the message. "Ethan, since you've made this so difficult, you must ensure the truth is revealed, as you've always given off an image of being virtuous. But don't forget about the loan you gave to Dave. I am aware of the funds you've concealed from me, and you believe you can escape unscathed. But let me warn you, once I disclose your financial manipulations to the court, you won't seem so blameless anymore. I intend to prolong this divorce as much as possible. Your decision to leave will come back to haunt you." Her suspicions were confirmed when she discovered about the loan to Dave, the one thing I thought would never surface. She intends to exploit this information to portray me as a secretive and dishonest spouse. The amount wasn't substantial, but if she presents it in the right light, it could create complications. What makes this worse is that she has a knack for instigating conflict and thriving on chaos. The more disorderly things become, the stronger she feels, and now she intends to transform this divorce into a battleground. Closing my laptop angrily, I paced the room, my thoughts swirling with fury. The walls seemed to be closing in, trapping me in a game I didn't wish to play. I needed help. I wasn't sure how far she was willing to go, but her recent actions made it clear she wasn't bluffing anymore. She intended to cause pain. I grabbed my phone and dialed Dave, scarcely waiting for him to answer. "Dave, we have a problem," I said as soon as he picked up. "What's going on?" he asked, sounding puzzled. "Katie knows about the loan," I replied, running my hand through my hair. "She's threatening to use it in court, making it appear that I was concealing money from her." There was a pause, followed by Dave letting out a heavy sigh. "Damn, man," he said, "I didn't think she'd go that low, but I should have known." "Indeed, she can't use that against you. The loan wasn't hidden. It was a personal loan between friends. It wasn't like you were hiding it somewhere secret. But you know how she is. You claimed your voice was tight. She intends to manipulate it to make it appear as though you were dishonest. As time passes, it will only worsen. That's why Dave asserted emphatically that you need to put an end to this situation promptly, Ethan. She's attempting to unsettle you, to make you falter, but if you maintain your composure, she'll exhaust herself." He was correct. Katie is counting on you panicking, spiraling into fear and self-doubt, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I had to remain calm, focused. The following morning, I met with my lawyer again, revealing all the details: the loan, the emails, the threats. He remained composed, almost detached, as if he had encountered similar situations countless times before. "She's trying to intimidate you," he said, reclining in his chair. "However, we can manage this situation. The loan isn't a secret. It isn't even marital property. It won't hold up in court." I subtly nodded, experiencing a hint of relief, yet still sensing the persistent tension. What if she continues to pressure me? What if this ordeal drags on for months, attempting to wear me down? Inquiring from my attorney, I offered a slight, reassuring smile. "We're already in divorce proceedings and firmly positioned, so the longer she plays these games, the worse her appearance will be before a judge, keeping everything above board. Maintain professionalism. If she seeks a confrontation, let her take it." However, Katie refused to back down without a final blow, and a few days later, I found an envelope in my front door. Not from the court, nothing official, it was from Katie. I unveiled it, a chill of familiar apprehension tracing my backbone. Contained within was a solitary sheet of paper adorned with several photos pasted onto it. The images depicted myself and Dave enjoying drinks together. One photo showed us laughing, while another suggested we were engaged in a serious discussion. At first, I couldn't fathom why she would send me these, but upon reading the scrawled message on the back, the pieces fell into place. Drinking your troubles away while we're still married. This won't bode well in court, will it? Don't forget, I can just as easily cast you in a negative light as you are trying to do to me. Keep playing, Ethan. I'm prepared for it. Such a trivial, desperate ploy photos of my friend and me intended to portray me as reckless, shirking duties. But it served its purpose, reminding me of the adversary I faced. Someone relentless in her aim to demolish me entirely. However, something within me had changed. The fear, the anxiety no longer held me captive as firmly. She was flailing, searching frantically for ammunition, and it became evident. Her grasp on me was slipping away, and she knew it that night. I chose not to respond neither with angry texts nor phone calls and went to bed instead. I would no longer participate in her schemes with her continual threats. Let her handle it. I had truth on my side, and more crucially, the resolve to carry on for the upcoming tough weeks. Katie's lawyer attempted to scrutinize every minor detail, aiming to portray me as a negligent spouse, hiding things, and so forth. However, my legal representative was well prepared, dismissing each accusation and countering false evidence presented. The court date arrived sooner than anticipated, and Katie appeared cold and calculating, yet there was an undercurrent of desperation in her eyes. She knew she had lost. The judge saw through her tricks, ruling in my favor. The divorce was swiftly and cleanly settled as promised by my lawyer upon leaving the courthouse. I finally felt the burden lift. Katie was no longer part of my existence, her influence unable to reach me. Driving home with the sun dipping below the horizon, I experienced tranquility for the first time in months. The turbulence had subsided, and I remained steadfast, stronger than ever. My life had been reclaimed, Katie merely a tale. The chapter was now closed.